Welcome to today's Explainer. We're not just taking some casual stroll through ancient history today. We are looking at a literal masterclass in civilization building. We're going to examine the exact blueprint of the Tang dynasty, a period widely regarded as China's absolute golden age. From the years 618 to 907 AD, the Tang Empire achieved a level of prosperity, stability, and sheer cultural creativity that left a permanent mark on world history.
But right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself, what does it actually take to build a golden age? I mean, is it just dumb luck, good geography, or are there actual engineered mechanics, structural decisions that generate historical prosperity? By digging into the architecture of the Tang dynasty's incredible growth, we can actually draw some major insights into how modern societies build and safeguard their own prosperity today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the foundation of a golden age. Then, fueling the economic engine. After that, we'll look at a cosmopolitan cultural hub, followed by women in Tang society, and finally, the pinnacle of poetry.
Section 1. Foundation of a Golden Age, the heavy lifting of the Sui.
You know, in history, there's almost always a setup and payoff dynamic. The incredibly effortless prosperity we usually associate with the Tang dynasty, well, actually scratch that. It wasn't effortless at all. It was built on the back of some brutal, massive infrastructure investments from the dynasty right before them, the Sui. Back in 581 AD, Emperor Wendy founded the Sui dynasty, reunifying China after a super long, chaotic period. Then his successor Emperor Yangdi went all in on expanding infrastructure, finishing the massive Grand Canal by 610 AD. But this relentless push, it completely exhausted the country and the Sui collapsed. And boom, out of that immediate chaos, the Tang dynasty is founded in 618 AD. The Tang essentially inherited this newly unified, highly integrated empire without having to pay any of those devastating initial startup costs.
To really understand what an unbelievable inheritance this was, we've got to talk about the Grand Canal. Think of this not just as a river, but as a giant nationwide supply chain. We're talking over 1,000 miles long, directly linking the Yellow and Yangtze river systems. This was a total engineering marvel, honestly on par with what the River Nile was to ancient Egypt. See, the political capital up north just didn't have enough food. So this canal allowed the government to ship literal mountains of grain from the lush, fertile valleys of the south. And to pull this off, they mobilized up to 5 million workers. 5 million just to build this massive inland river highway.
Now, what's really fascinating and deeply tragic about this slide is the horrific paradox behind it all. Historical records say more than 2 million people died during this absolutely ruthless, rapid construction phase. In fact, Confucian scholars directly blame the collapse of the Sui dynasty on this exact overexploitation of human and material resources. So the Sui did all this deadly, wildly unpopular heavy lifting, and as a result, the succeeding Tang dynasty stepped right in and reaps all the incredible economic rewards of this brand new unified supply chain.
Moving on to Section 2, fueling the economic engine, land and trade.
So the crucial point here is how brilliant the Tang rulers were at leveraging that new infrastructure to kickstart massive internal growth. Their secret weapon? Something called the equal field system. Basically, the emperor owned all the land and then handed it out to families based on the size of their household. But there was a catch. In exchange, the men who got this land had to do mandatory fixed-period military service every single year. They called this the Fubing system. Honestly, it was a genius twin policy. It worked like a massive economic stimulus, rapidly boosting farm productivity, while simultaneously building a huge, formidable standing army, all without draining the state treasury dry.
And this brilliantly illustrates where all that economic and military muscle was focused, outward. Along the ancient Silk Road, the Tang Empire connected their capital of Chang'an right into Central Asia and way beyond to the west. Using that massive army we just talked about, the Tang secured major military victories in the Tarim Basin. And those wins are absolutely crucial for sure, because they kept this massive artery of global trade wide open. They weren't just protecting some lines on a map, they were defending the literal lifeblood of their international economy.
Which brings us to Section 3, a cosmopolitan cultural hub, Chang'an and beyond.
All of this booming trade and internal stability naturally changed the entire fabric of society. And the beating heart of that transformation was the capital city, Chang'an. At its peak, this was literally the largest city in the entire world. It wasn't just a stuffy political center, it was a vibrant, cosmopolitan global hub, absolutely buzzing with diversity, energy, and an incredible amount of international exchange. If you wanted to be at the absolute center of the universe in the 7th or 8th century, Chang'an was exactly where you went.
I mean, the Tang era was just an absolute multicultural reality. You had massive enclaves of foreign merchants who settled down permanently in China. Down south, you had these super lucrative maritime trade routes running out of port cities like Guangzhou, connecting China to far-off nations by sea. And culturally, the ideas spread like wildfire. Buddhism, which came in right through those exact trade routes, became the go-to religion for everyday people. Even the whole aesthetic of the empire completely morphed, with Central Asian nomadic styles popping up everywhere in Tang ceramics, music, and art.
All right, Section 4, Women in Tang Society, Power and Diplomacy.
Now, the Tang era gives us this really unique historical window into women's autonomy. A lot of this was heavily influenced by the dynasty's roots in northern China and the nomadic cultures of the Eurasian steppe, where men and women were on much more equal footing. To really grasp how special this was, just look at the historical contrast. During the Tang dynasty, women were recorded as handling legal disputes, getting deep into politics, and even fighting in wars. But look at what happens later during the Song dynasty. When Neo-Confucianism took over, women faced these incredibly severe restrictions. Horrific practices like foot binding and widow suicide became totally normalized. So by comparison, the Tang dynasty was an absolute golden age for women's freedom and power.
And we've got the historical receipts to prove it too. Women in the Tang era definitely weren't just sitting on the sidelines. They were actively shaping the empire. Take Empress Wu Zetian. She rose up to become the only official empress regnant, meaning supreme ruler, in all of Chinese history. No way, right? Then you have Princess Pingyang, who literally helped found the dynasty by raising and commanding her own army of 70,000 soldiers. And let's not forget vital diplomats like Princess Wencheng and Princess Taihei. They were sent to foreign courts not as mere bargaining chips, but as powerful, active political and cultural ambassadors for the Tang Empire.
Let's move to our final pillar. Section 5. The pinnacle of poetry, the High Tang.
So, in Tang society, writing literature wasn't just some weekend hobby. It was basically the ultimate social and political currency. Seriously, if you wanted to pass the civil service exams and become a powerful scholar official, you absolutely had to master poetry. I want this next number to just sink in for a second. 48,900. That is the massive number of poems perfectly preserved in the complete Tang Poems collection, written by over 2,200 different authors. Since poetry was technically open to anyone and mandatory for government work, the sheer scale of their cultural output was just staggering. It's like an entire empire speaking in verse.
And out of all those thousands of authors, two rock star names totally define the High Tang era. Li Bai, also known as Li Bo, and Du Fo. These guys basically looked at the older, super ornate, stuffy court styles of poetry and tossed them out the window. Instead, they boldly hijacked the old forms and pumped them full of hard-hitting, authentic commentary on real society and politics. Their brilliant verses essentially became the definitive bedrock of Chinese literature for centuries to come.
But as we wrap up this explainer, we do have to face a pretty harsh historical truth. Even golden ages are incredibly fragile. At its absolute zenith under Emperor Xuanzang, the Tang ruled over an empire of at least 50 million people. But then, in 755 AD, the devastating An Lushan rebellion broke out. War, disease, mass economic chaos, it completely gutted the population. By the time the dust finally settled in 763 AD, the central imperial government was permanently weakened, losing control to regional warlords. Just like that, the Golden Age had essentially fractured.
Which leaves us with this final lingering thought. We've just walked through the blueprint, right? We saw the Tang dynasty perfectly leverage their infrastructure, supercharge their economy, embraced a crazy amount of cosmopolitan diversity, and sparked a total cultural renaissance. But we also saw how unbelievably fast the whole shebang could unravel. So if even the most meticulously built, brilliantly engineered golden ages can collapse under the weight of internal rebellion, what exactly must modern societies do to safeguard their own prosperity today? It's a massive question, and it's one the ghosts of Chang'an are absolutely still asking us today. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the mechanics of our world.